Oh yes, I'll see you in the rapture. I'll see you in the rapture. I'll see you at the meeting in the air.
This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Welcome to the podcast. I want to start a new message today, actually a series on the end time battle plan for the remnant. Specifically, in this message, infiltration. But let's go to the Father in prayer first. As you may and may not know, this is a pro-life ministry. We believe that life begins at conception. And every podcast, I pray for the babies in the womb. Remember, with the babies in the womb, their hearts begin to beat around 18 days. And around 4 months, their hearts are pumping about 25 quarts of blood per day. So again, if you want to join with me, I'm going to pray for the babies in the womb right now. Father, I ask you to touch the babies in the womb, Father. Bring them to a full birth. And Father, anybody who's listening who had an abortion, Father, help them to repent, to ask you to forgive them, and go on and follow you, and not to look back. And Father, also on this podcast and every succeeding podcast, I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say, nothing more and nothing less. Help people, Father, to open up their spirits and not only receive the word, but study the word for themselves. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. So again, we're talking about the end-time battle plan for the remnant. And specifically today, I want to talk against infiltration. Now, to be part of the remnant, you have to surrender everything to the Father. Ask the Father to come into your spirit, fill you with His Spirit, mortify the deeds of your flesh, and every day make you more and more like Yeshua, bringing the fruit of the Spirit out of your life. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. That's the main qualification to be part of the remnant. And every day the Father will work on us, point out things in our lives that He wants to take out. And on the Sabbath, which is Friday, 6 p.m. to Saturday, 6 p.m., sometime during that time, He wants to do an operation and take out what He pointed out to us during the week out of our lives and give us a brand new start to the beginning of the week, which starts on Saturday at 6 p.m. So many believers are caught up in 12:01 a.m. as the start of the day, which is nowhere in the Word. And so we know that Yeshua talked about the 12 hours of the day, which are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then 12 hours of the night are the night seasons. We have to be on the Father's timing. This podcast is for people who want to be in the remnant and people who are in the remnant. So many people think that they're rapture ready and everything's fine. I've been born again for 35 years and I'm ready for the rapture. And it's not that easy because we have the flesh to deal with, but as we turn the flesh over to the Father, let Him work on us, He will get us rapture ready. There's no other way. So again, I'm telling these messages for people who are in the remnant or who want to be in the remnant. I've had so many messages with thousands of views when I talk about the rapture, a possible time frame for the rapture. Yeah, and people want to hear that. They want to hear the date of the rapture, but are they really rapture ready? We got to make sure that we're rapture ready. And the only way is to allow the Father to work on us every single day. Again, a remnant is only a small part of a carpet. The road to heaven is straight and narrow and few are found on it. The road to hell is wide and leads to destruction, and many are found on it. So it's important that we really get along with the Father, let Him work on us, and stop listening to people say, hey, you're once saved, always saved, which is not in the Word. He that endures to the end, the same shall be saved. See, when we turn our salvation, and specifically going in the rapture, over to the Father, it becomes His responsibility, and He deals with us accordingly. And it's our responsibility to listen to Him and let Him change us. And maybe He wants to take people out of our lives. Don't hold on to those people. The Father's trying to kill the relationship, not the person. The Father's trying to kill the relationship, and you're holding on to it. It's important that we all get really rapture ready, and the only way is to surrender everything to the Father, as I mentioned, and avoid that infiltration. But turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 14. See, infiltration wants to take us off the ground that we have already attained with Yeshua. You got to hold on to that ground. Don't give in. In 1 Samuel chapter 14, the Philistines had sharpened all the swords of the Israelites. There's only two. And so Jonathan and his armor bearer took the two swords and went up against the enemy. Jonathan said, if they tell us to come up and want to talk to us, then we know we got the victory. But if they say, stay where you are, we're coming down, then we're going to have to fight some other time. But Jonathan's armor bearer went up there in verse 13, and Jonathan climbed upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. And that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men within, as it were, a half acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. See, we got to take that half acre and hold on to it. We got to hold on to that half acre, the ground that the Father has given us. And as we do, the Father's going to move to help us and protect us and use us in these last days. Verse 15, and as a result of them holding on to that land, the ground, there was a trembling in the host and in the field and among all the people, the garrison and the spoilers, they also trembled. And the earth quaked, so it was a very great trembling. You see, here's where they infiltrated the enemy, and they held on to that ground that they achieved. It's so important that you find people in your life who want to work towards the same goal, and that is to surrender everything to the Father, allow Him to make us into the image of Yeshua, and use us in these last days. It's so powerful. Go with me to the book of Nehemiah, to the right, Nehemiah. Again, talking about infiltration, talking against infiltration. And at least once a week I'll be talking about the remnant, and how the Father's telling us to maybe sharpen this area, to look out for this. As He instructs me, I'm going to instruct you. And maybe you'll hear some things from the Father you can address in the comments. And we can work on this together. And you can even email me at contact, CONTACT, at henrywalker.org. Contact, CONTACT, at henrywalker.org. And my website is henrywalker.org. We can work together. It's so important. Some people are just wishy-washy. They want to hear that the rapture is coming, but they really don't realize that they may not be ready for the rapture. And we have an enemy out there right now. And as I mentioned on previous podcasts, that the Antichrist is already here. He hasn't turned against Israel. He'll do that in the middle of the 7-year period, but he's here already. On a previous podcast I just did, I talked about Esther and Haman. Haman is the type of the Antichrist, and he was working against Esther, working against the Jewish people. And then when Mordecai, at the very last chapter, was exalted, lifted up to be second to the king as Ahasuerus, that's the type of the rapture. So the Antichrist was there before the rapture. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1 to 5, it talks in verse 3 about there has to be a falling away first. That falling away is happening right now to so many people through the Antichrist. The Antichrist, I'm not going to reveal who the Father told me he is, but he's out there. He's known around the world, and he's moving very hard right now. He's pushing very hard right now. And he's got technological people around him who are experts in technology. It's all to entrap people, to control people. I talked on the last podcast about smartphones. The enemy is using smartphones to bring people into a higher level of technology, and technology is going to lead to the mark of the beast. And as I mentioned, I heard somebody say this, that knowledge is doubling every month. And technology is a way, they're going to say, to make things easier for people, but it's actually more about control. And even cryptocurrency is all about going on a blockchain, getting more information. Can we recognize who you are? Facial recognition, biometrics. It's all part of the enemy, get people away from the family of the Father. He's not interested in people that he's got in his back pocket. He's interested in the remnant. And my job, my position is to help the remnant, all of us, to recognize where the battle is and to develop a plan from the Word. I pray that you join with me at least once a week, and maybe I'll do it twice a week. Let's go over the Word together, study the Word together, and see how the Father leads. Because it's very important to join together with people that you can trust. And again, this podcast is not for people who just want to hear about the rapture and when it's going to happen. I love to point out seasons where it's a possibility, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. The idea is to be ready for whenever it happens. Nehemiah chapter 2. Nehemiah is right after Ezra, before Esther, before the Psalms, before Job. Here's a situation where a remnant under the leadership of Nehemiah worked together to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. So Nehemiah was so upset about the wall being down in Jerusalem. And the king noticed that he was really upset and asked him, what is the problem? What can he do? They told him about the wall being down, and he gave him the finances to rebuild the wall and letters giving him authority to get whatever he needed. In verse 19, but when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn and despised us and said, what is this thing that you do? Will you rebel against the king? This is as they were building. Nehemiah answered them and said unto them, the Elohim of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we his servants will arise and build, but you have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. He fought against that spirit of infiltration. He had a job to do from the Father, and nothing was going to stop him. And he only wanted those people around him who had the same desire. And that's what I'm pointing out. We want to go into rapture. We want to fulfill our purpose. We want to avoid what the world has. We're in the world, but not of the world. Very careful. Don't be infiltrated. Don't permit any infiltration to get you off your walk with the Father through Yeshua. Make sure there's nothing of any pagan origin in your relationship to the Father through Yeshua. Any of those holidays that Constantine brought in is bringing Satan into your house and into your life, into your family. You don't want that. Study what I'm saying. Go back to what Constantine brought in. Read my messages on henrywalker.org. There's about 350 messages, written messages, and 2 free books on the bottom of the written message page. Noon talks about the feast days, different times of the day when the Father moves the most, and is the Trinity really a mystery? It's another book explaining the so-called mystery of the Trinity. And I have message, wine is a mocker on there. The devil just smiles when people start drinking wine and saying that Yeshua changed water into wine. No, he didn't. And wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. Wine can lead to strong drink too. And it's even a problem for some people to look at the wine in the glass. It bites like a snake, the word says. But the choice is up to you. Keep that junk out of your body, out of your house. What they used to do is used to squeeze the grapes, boil the juice, make it into a gel, and put that gel into a new wineskin so it wouldn't ferment. And when they wanted a drink, they would squeeze the wineskin and add the water. That's exactly what Yeshua did on the wedding feast of Cana. He made the gel, and I said, you add the water. So many people are using wine, beer, alcohol as an escape with all this pressure that's going on. Well, the pressure is for people's souls. And it's important that we, again, become part of the remnant by surrendering everything to the Father and following him on a day-to-day basis. And it's important that we surrender everything to the Father, become part of his remnant, and follow him as he leads. It's so important that we surrender everything to the Father, be part of his remnant, stay part of his remnant with his help, and as he prompts us, let him take junk out of our lives. So the biggest problem we have is not Satan, it's the flesh. And the only person who can control our flesh is the Father. So you can see that Nehemiah took the first step to avoid that infiltration by saying to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, you have no right to build with us. And so what they did, when they rebuilt the wall, they had people working alongside each other in teams. You can see in chapter 3, verse 4, and next unto them repaired Meramoth, the son of Uriah. In verse 6, moreover, the old gate repaired Jehoiada, the son of Paseah. They worked next together. They worked as a team. And we talked about Esther. Esther and Mordecai worked as a team. And I said team, T-E-A-M, together everybody accomplishes more. So they kept that infiltration out by working as a team and watching each other's back. In chapter 4, verse 1, and it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we built the wall, he was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. And started, criticizing them and making fun of them and everything. In verse 4, Nehemiah said, hear, O Elohim, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before you. for they have provoked you to anger before the builders. So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. In verse 7, but it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites, they got more people now, heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and that the breaches began to be stopped, they were very wroth, and they conspired to fight against them. Nehemiah prayed before Elohim and set a watch against them day and night because of them. It worked out where if somebody was building, there's somebody behind him with a weapon watching his back in case the enemy came. So they protected themselves against the infiltration by working together. That's what I'm saying about this ministry, this podcast. Let's work together and see what the Father says, how he can strengthen us in these last days and avoid the pitfalls that so many believers could fall into with the Antichrist. I mean, if you pray about it, the Father will show you who he is, and he is moving quickly. It seems that he believes that nothing can stop him, and he's right to a certain extent. The one who's going to stop him is the presence of Yeshua, throwing him and a false prophet into the pit of hell. It's a season right now where it's going to get worse because the Antichrist is making a move, trying to infiltrate into people's lives. Again, he's interested only in those people that belong to the family of the Father. In the garden, the attack was over Adam and Eve, the family of the Father. And Satan won, and Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, and a cherubim with a flaming sword was set there to keep them from coming in. It's the same plan right now, to try to break up the family of the Father. So hold on to the ground that the Father has given you. And in chapter 5, of course, the people that were building were trying to keep their houses going, their expenses and everything, and they were borrowing money, but the lenders were charging so much, taking their land, taking their houses. In chapter 5, verse 11, Nehemiah spoke to them and said, restore, I pray you, to them, even this day, their lands, their vineyards, and their olive yards, and their houses, also the 100th part of the money, and of the corn, and of the grape juice, and the oil that you exacted them. See, the word for wine in the Old and the New Testament, just to go back what I said before, it's the same Hebrew word and the same Greek word. You have to read what the Spirit of the Father is talking about to make a decision. Because here, it mentions corn and wine, that's grape juice, and the oil that you exact of them. So important that you really study that. You don't want any demonic influence in your house, in your body. And even the liquor stores do a favor. They say beer, wine, spirits. The spirits that are connected to the beer, wine, and alcohol. And CNN did a study on it, how dangerous wine is. And I heard another study about that even one glass of wine can affect the brain cells. But that choice is up to you. Again, we want to be rapture ready, and that's what our purpose is. For us to maintain our relationship with the Father, increase our relationship with the Father, and help other people to have their relationship with the Father that he wants for them. And to stop thinking that they're doing everything right with mainstream Christianity and that everything has to be okay. Look at all the people that are in my congregation. They can't be wrong. Yes, because the road to hell is wide and many are found on it. And most congregations have Constantine's doctrine as part of their doctrine. And that's these holidays and other junk that Constantine brought in. And every one of those holidays are all pagan in origin, have nothing to do with Yeshua. They're not in the word at all. Yeshua was born on Passover, died on Passover. He was exactly 33 years old. He died on Wednesday, Passover. He rose on Saturday at 3 p.m. Wednesday at 3 p.m. He gave up his life. So that knocks out Good Friday, and it knocks out Easter. He rose on Saturday at 3 p.m. Nobody came to the tomb because they didn't want to go near a dead body. And sometime after 6 p.m., which started Sunday, the first day of the week, they came to the tomb and saw that he had already risen. Read the message. When was Yeshua born? When did he die? When did he rise? At henrywalker.org, the first message on the top. Written message. So again, Nehemiah is standing against that infiltration. In chapter 6, verse 1. Now it came to pass when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall and that there was no breach therein, so at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates, That Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Oh no. He said, Oh no, we're not going to meet. But they thought to do me mischief. In verse 3, and I sent messages unto them, saying, I'm doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? They did this 4 times. They came against them. One guy said, hey, meet me in the synagogue and you'd be safe. He said, no, I'm not going to run to the synagogue for safety. In verse 9, they all made us afraid, Nehemiah said, saying, their hand shall be weakened from the work, that it be not done. Now therefore, O Elohim, strengthen my hands. In verse 14, Nehemiah said, my Elohim, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat, according to these their works, and on the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets, that would have put me in fear. So the source of the attack upon Nehemiah and the rest of the remnant that we're building was coming from believers. So it's so important that you understand that we all individually are going to stand before Yeshua. It's not like a whole group of people standing before him. It's one-on-one. And you got to stand strong for you and your family. And whoever's against you is against you, but you got to understand, don't desire to be in the majority. Yeshua was always in a minority. He had 12, down to 11, back to 12. And after he appeared to 500 people, after he rose, only 120 showed up on the day of Pentecost. It's important that you separate from what you need to separate. People, places, things, and concentrate on Yeshua and maintaining the ground that he gave you, maintaining your walk with the Father, increasing your walk with the Father through Yeshua. And minister to people as the Father leads. In verse 15, so the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. In verse 16, and it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of Elohim. So you see, they fought against infiltration successfully. We are too. We're going to do that. We're standing against infiltration right now, and we're going to continue standing against it. The devil just wants to mess up the family of the Father. But as for me and my house, me and my wife, he's not going to get to us. And we want to help each other to stand strong. So, again, there's a remnant that went back to build the wall. And we as a remnant can help people. We can strengthen each other. We can hear from the Father and see what he wants us to do in these last days. And give us that last day battle plan. And this is part of it. The infiltration. Push against infiltration. If you go with me to the book of Joshua, Joshua chapter 9. Joshua's right after Deuteronomy, right before Judges. There's a group of people called the Gibeonites. It was a really strong city. But they're afraid of Joshua and what Yahweh had done for him against his enemies. In verse 8, Joshua chapter 9. And he said unto Joshua, we are your servants. And Joshua said unto them, who are you, and from whence come you? And they said that we're from a long distance, and our shoes are all dirty, and our bread is all molded. And he said, we just want to make peace with you. We want to join with you. We want to be your servants. Verse 15, and Joshua made peace with them, and made a league with them to let them live, and the princes of the congregation swore unto them. Later on, they found out they were neighbors, and they lied to them. Joshua was upset. Said, you're going to be our servants, you're under a curse. You're going to be our bondmen, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of Yahweh. In chapter 10, however, enemies came against the Gibeonites. They heard what Yahweh had done through Joshua to Ai, and now they're after Gibeon. They're afraid, but they went after Gibeon anyway. Joshua, who was infiltrated by the Gibeonites, had a covenant with them, and now he had to defend them from the armies of these 5 kings that were coming against them. In verse 8, chapter 10, and Yahweh said unto Joshua, fear them not, for I have delivered them into your hand. There shall not a man of them stand before you. In verse 11, and it came to pass as they fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Beth Horon, that Yahweh cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died, There were more which died with the hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. See, Yahweh was working with them, and he is working with us. We have nothing to fear. We want to hold on to the ground that he's given us and get more ground as he leads us. Know more about him and how we can help more and more people. That's the ground I'm talking about, is to accomplish more in our relationship to the Father, to Yeshua, and also accomplish more and bring more people into that relationship to the Father, to Yeshua, the family of the Father. We need to fight against that infiltration, trying to take people away from the family of the Father. And we can do it together. Tell people about the podcast. Share, subscribe, hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Or you can text me at contact, CONTACT, at henrywalker.org. Contact at henrywalker.org. And let's fight together in the Spirit to hold on to the ground which the Father has given us and has accomplished in us spiritually, physically, mentally, financially. And he'll increase us in every area as we hold on to him and learn more about what he wants to do in these last days, giving us more battle plans. So we're going to pick up next time from Joshua. Again, we're talking about being part of the remnant, staying part of the remnant, and fighting against that spirit of Antichrist that's moving right now against some of the Father's people, and to recognize that and to help warn people and to encourage ourselves. It's a strong attack that this spirit is using through the Antichrist, trying to make things easier, promising this, promising that, but it's all about controlling and getting more information and having people report to this person and not to be able to buy or sell without the approval of this person. And this person has surrounded himself with so many big shots, quote unquote, in technology to achieve their plan of controlling the world. They can't control us as the remnant, and so we need to pray for people and stand in the gap for people and help people to avoid that Antichrist technology move. And also on every podcast I mention that if your flesh or Satan is giving you any thoughts that are contrary to the Father's word, just say out loud, Yeshua, I thank you for the crown of thorns around your head. That was for me. That means my mind is protected by your blood. I only think your thoughts, and give those thoughts to the Father and go on. And also, I want to remind you about those night seasons from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Remember, from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. is the time when witches want to move. So if the Father wakes you up during that time to pray for somebody, it could be they're going through a witchcraft attack. Also, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the darkest part of the night, and the Father may wake you up to pray for somebody who's going through the darkest part of their life. And that's the time when Yeshua walked on the water and said, I am, be not afraid. Only the Father can walk on the water. Job 9:8. Peter got out of the boat to walk, but he sunk right down. You of little faith. Everybody else stayed in the boat because they knew who Yeshua was saying he was. The great I am. Be not afraid, he said. So Job 9:8 says only the Father can walk on the water. So thank you for listening to this podcast. And remember till next time, this is Evangelist Henry Walker saying greater is the Father in us, our Daddy, the King of the universe, than anything or anybody in the world.
Oh.